Okay, it's cold here in St. Louis and it's been snowing, so I put up this picture of snow behind me. Now, in the gospel, we have another miracle of the multiplication of loaves. And then they all get in a boat, and Jesus tells them to beware the leaven of the Pharisees and of Herod. The leaven, that's yeast. We've talked about this in prior semesters. Yeast is a microscopic thing, a living organism that causes bread to rise. Jesus clearly is speaking symbolically. The leaven of the Pharisees and of Herod would be those little unseen things that puff you up. In other words, the little seeds of pride, the little seeds of sin that later on have large and obvious consequences. But the disciples don't get it. They're kind of like us. And they say, oh, you must be talking about bread. And Jesus says, no, you idiots. If you're talking about bread, he says, don't you remember the first miracle with the loaves of bread and the second miracle with the loaves of bread? He focuses them on the miracle because the multiplication of the loaves isn't about bread. It's about the divine providence of God and about the authority of Christ and the cooperation of the apostles who helped distribute the bread. And ultimately, it's about the Eucharist. We know. He says to them, do you have ears but hear not and eyes that but see not? Quoting Isaiah, who asks the same question. Now, here's what we're going to try to do today. We're going to try to see if we can open our eyes and our ears so that we have eyes that see and ears that hear, especially our ears, because I'm going to link to some music that might help you with some of the Old Testament readings. The two Old Testament readings I'm going to talk about a bit. Psalm 22, which is absolutely explodes all over the place by the time we get to the Passion and the Crucifixion. Psalm 22, written by David, King David, about 1,000 years prior to the life of Christ. David thought he was talking about his own situation. In fact, he was prophesying about the Messiah, not just the Messiah, but the crucifixion. And then in Isaiah, Isaiah too probably thinks he's talking about a deliverer who will come and fix the political tight spot that Jerusalem and Judea are in. And yet, he's prophesying in a way that we remember every Christmas, sort of like a virgin shall conceive. So let's look at both of those a bit, and then we'll also talk about the links, which are going to be from Handel's Messiah. Now, Psalm 22 begins with what 1,000 years later becomes one of the last words of Christ on the cross. My God, why have you forsaken me or abandoned me? Now, when Jesus said this on the cross, he wasn't just complaining. Certainly he was. He must have felt forsaken and abandoned. He certainly looked forsaken and abandoned. But all of the Jews within earshot would have known exactly what he was quoting. They would have known that he wasn't just speaking for himself. He was quoting his ancestor, King David. My God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from saving me from the words of my groaning? Oh my God, I cry by day, but you do not answer, and by night, but I find no rest. And then it pivots. This isn't just a psalm of lamentation. This is a psalm of praise and trust. Yet you are holy, enthroned on the praises of Israel. In you our fathers trusted. They trusted and you delivered them. To you they cried and were rescued. In you they trusted and were not put to shame. It becomes a psalm of hope. And so Jesus is alluding from the cross not only to the despair, but also to the hope of David. Now, of course, you also have these famous moments that are echoed at the Passion. David says, all who see me mock me. They make mouths at me. They wag their heads. And they say, he trusts in the Lord. Let him deliver him. Let him rescue him, for he delights in him. Remember, this is what they said to Jesus. This is what the Pharisees say while Jesus is hanging on the cross. He trusts in God. Let God deliver him if he delights in him. The Pharisees quote this psalm. not realizing that in mocking Jesus, they are taking the part of those who are mocking the great King David. But then, of course, there's more, because later we see they have pierced my hands and my feet, and they divide my garments among them, and for my clothing they cast lots. Now, earlier in another video last semester or whenever it was, I had linked to the song from Handel's Messiah. He trusted in God, let him deliver him. Now, some of you weren't with me in prior semesters, so I'm going to link to it again. Listen to that. Listen to what Handel does, how he takes the mockery of people who were making fun of David in Psalm 22, and later of the Pharisees who used the same words to mock Jesus at the crucifixion, and he creates this piece of music, which is nasty. I mean, it's not like rock and roll, but there's something about it that's sort of in your face and disturbing, even though I suppose it's Baroque. It sounds Baroque. But Handel also takes a quotation from Isaiah. First of all, Isaiah says, "The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Those who dwelt in a land of deep darkness, on them light has shone." Now, John quotes that in his gospel. The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Now, if we were like the apostles, we would probably say, well, what happened? Did the moon come out? Was the sun behind the cloud? And then it's sunny. Hey, is that what you mean, Jesus? No, you idiots. I'm not talking about that kind of light. We have to be more than literalists, or we become like fundamentalists and we become anti-rational. Let this speak to you poetically. Let the Bible speak to your heart. That's why music and art can be so helpful. But speaking of music, you will know this, because Isaiah, who thinks he's talking about a deliverer for their time and their political trouble, doesn't know he's really prophesying about Jesus, who will come some 700 years later. For unto us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Now, had we not had that written as a song by Handel and included in Messiah, and it's something you probably know, you probably hear it during Christmas season, we might not have a sense of the glory of that vision. Handel, I think, captures some of it. So I'm going to put a link up to He Trusted in God and to Unto Us a Child is Born from the Messiah. Listen to both. And then your assignment is to tell me, has the music opened your ears? Has it helped you understand more what's going on in these passages from the Old Testament which refer to Jesus Christ? Does it open up to you some of the glory and wonder of the child who will be the head of all government, of the child who will bring a reign of peace, or of the Pharisees mocking the crucified Christ? Let the music speak to you. Students, you like music, you probably like rock, pop, hip hop. Well, Handel is good or better than any of that. So let the music speak to you and see if you can plug in to the message of the Holy Spirit in a way that the disciples in the boat couldn't.